My boy passed away. He didn't make it in a hotel blaze. That day, my firefighter hubby was also out on the rescue mission, but he was busy saving his first love and her kid next door to us. Before Liam lost his life, he looked at me and said, "Dad's a hero, saving so many people. Why didn't he save us?" I couldn't find the words to respond. At the funeral, I reached out to Mark. He brushed me off, saying, "Mia and her son got burned and they're in the hospital. Can you stop being jealous at the wrong time?" I pleaded. Then he hung up. I sat in my wheelchair, staring at Liam's headstone and my own burn scars, realizing our marriage was truly over. "Dad, I'm here." "Liam, cover your nose and mouth. Don't talk." Liam and I noticed the fire when it was already raging, so we took cover in our room. My husband, Mark, a firefighter, was leading the rescue team that day. When Liam and I saw him from upstairs, hope surged within us. I had sent him the hotel address and our room number while we were traveling, but Mark bypassed our room and went straight next door to save Mia and her son. Liam couldn't hold back any longer, crying out, "Mom, Aunt Mia is here too. Dad only cares about them. Is he going to ignore us again?" "Mom, I can't breathe well. It's so uncomfortable." The room was thick with smoke. He was only 5, barely holding on. I wrapped a wet towel around him to help him breathe and rushed us to the door. "Mark, Liam's not going to make it. Please save us. Mark, I beg you." Just this once, couldn't he turn back for us? Mark walked past our door, and I screamed for him, my voice breaking, but he didn't even pause. Amidst the blazing fire, all I could hear was him comforting Mia, saying, "Don't worry, Mia. With me here, you and the kid will be fine." The smoke clouded my mind. I thought about covering Liam's ears too late. Tears welled in his eyes, his gaze losing focus. "Dad, why doesn't he ever notice me? I've been calling so loudly. Mom, I'm sorry." "I can't stay with you anymore. In my next life, can you give me a different dad? Please?" Liam's hand fell after that. My mind went blank. My chest felt like nails were being driven into it, the pain overwhelming me. I mustered every ounce of strength to hold his small body tight, tears stinging my eyes. "Okay, Mommy, we'll listen to you. Liam, don't sleep. Hang on a little longer, okay? Mommy will get you out." Black smoke engulfed us, and I couldn't even see Liam's face anymore. The floor was scorching, and so was the door. Flames greeted me, burning both Liam and me. My poor kid, how painful it must have been. I tried desperately to extinguish the fire, but it wouldn't die down. Smoke was suffocating, fire blazing. I crawled since I couldn't walk. This corridor stretched on endlessly. Eventually, other firefighters found us and got us to the hospital. Mark was with Mia in the next room, just like in the fire, with only a wall separating us. He didn't notice Liam and me at all, his heart only for his first love and her child. The doctor tried to take me for burn treatment. I refused, kneeling and begging them to save my son. He was just having a hard time and fell asleep. "Please save him." The doctor sighed, taking Liam into the emergency room. The defibrillator was used over and over, but his small body never opened his eyes again. The doctor said the child suffered a lot in the fire. "Don't torture his body after death." Yes, my Liam feared pain. How would he handle it? Severely burned. I asked my brother to handle the funeral and start the divorce with Mark. The divorce papers were ready the day I got injured, and I signed them. But Mark didn't answer my calls, just like on the day of the fire. Slowly, I realized he blocked me again. When he was with Mia, he'd block me if calls annoyed him, only unblocking me when he felt better. I endured this for 6 years, but now I just felt so tired and weary. My brother went to arrange Liam's funeral at the funeral home, leaving only a nurse to assist me. I asked the nurse to place me in a wheelchair, moving next door to find Mark. I couldn't take another second of this ridiculous marriage. The room next door was private too. My family is well off, and my job pays $20,000 a month. I don't need Mark's money. With his firefighter's pay, he could barely support our family, let alone this lavish single room for Mia and her son. They came out of the fire with only some smoke stains on their faces and a few minor burns, yet Mark was frantic with worry. I thought of Liam's unrecognizable body, and my heart hurt so much I couldn't breathe. Yeah, it's different when you love someone and when you don't. Mark. I called his name, gritting my teeth. He turned, his smile fading, and he frowned instantly. Sarah, who let you in here? Get out. I was scared to upset people, wearing a cap and mask to hide my injuries. I was in a hospital gown, sitting in a wheelchair. It was clear enough that I was injured, but even then, Mark was blind to it. Afraid I'd disturb Mia's recovery, Mark got up and pushed me out, not forgetting to warn me. Mia and I are just friends. How many times must I explain? Her husband passed away. She has no one. Do you need to be this petty, causing a scene over this? I had heard those reprimands so much that my ears were calloused. Mia didn't have a husband, yet she had Mark's care. I had a husband, but lived like I didn't. The water pipes burst at home, soaking the downstairs ceiling. Mark, busy replacing light bulbs at Mia's, told me not to rely on him so much. Eventually, Larry helped me out. I got in a car accident while Mark was out helping Mia pick out baby clothes. He told me not to stir up trouble. Liam had a high fever and convulsions one night, but Mark stayed with Mia's scared son instead, telling me not to get jealous. Stuff like this happened more times than I can count. Right now, seeing Mark act so self-righteous makes my stomach churn. I can't even find the words to say to him. Once you sign the divorce papers, I'll leave and won't bother your little family. I handed him the divorce papers. Mark thought I was making a fuss again and didn't take them. He just impatiently asked, "Are you done yet? I'll go home when Mia and Ethan are on good terms again." He always promised me that, but this time I had no hope left. "If you don't sign, I'll have the lawyer file a lawsuit." And 6 days later is Liam's funeral. "You," I heard Mia's voice inside. "Mark, it hurts. Don't worry, I'm coming." Mark replied with concern and urgency. He didn't even ask me a single word about Liam's funeral before going in. As I looked at the closed door, a piercing pain hit my chest. I don't even remember how I got home, just that the pressure on my chest was suffocating. Up until the funeral, Mark didn't ask anything about Liam. Even as the service was about to start, the father hadn't shown up. People whispered, "Why isn't the dad here yet?" I heard he's at the hospital with a woman and her kid. She's his ex-girlfriend, but he can't skip his own child's funeral. That's too much. Everyone looked at me with pity, some trying to comfort me. Thinking of times Liam eagerly waited for his dad made my throat feel like it was full of thorns. I clenched my fist tightly, nails digging painfully into my palms, trying to suppress my anger. I needed to get through the farewell without ruining it. I told my brother to call Mark. He blocked me. Looking grim, my brother called Mark. The line quickly connected. "Mark, today is Liam's funeral. You, Sarah, enough with this." Mia and her son were injured in a fire, and I'm helping them in the hospital. Please stop twisting everything into something filthy. Mark was angrier than me and hung up abruptly. No wonder when he heard Liam had passed, he had no reaction. He thought I was just making up drama. I've been accused by him many times, but this was the first time my body trembled with speechless rage. He shouted so loud that my brother overheard the conversation, snatching the phone and sending Mark a picture of Liam's death certificate. He called back, each word forced out like he was squeezing them from his throat. "Mark, do you see it clearly now? It's been a week since Liam passed, and you haven't even shown up once. Are you even human?" My brother spoke seriously enough that anyone with sense would know Liam's funeral wasn't a joke. I thought that when Mark found out, he'd apologize, feel regret, and guilt. But he hung up without another word and didn't show up at all during the service. The whole time, I was barely holding it together. I didn't know who came or what they said. I only knew I sat in a wheelchair, staring at Liam's smiling picture on the gravestone, with his painful voice echoing. "Mom, it hurts a lot. Mom, didn't Dad remember we stayed in this room? Why does he only remember Aunt Mia and Ethan in the next room?" I shouted really loud. "Why can't Dad hear me? Mom, are we going to die?" Those words played over and over, like invisible threads binding me to a nightmare. I couldn't escape. After the funeral, my brother rushed me to the emergency room. I had multiple burns, and the strain outside all day caused a severe infection. I had a high fever, dizzy, couldn't tell dream from reality. I only vaguely recalled someone holding my hand, repeatedly saying, "Sarah, don't sleep." Once my condition was stable, I got moved to a regular ward 10 days later. Mark was beside my bed, looking scruffy, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his chin. Not like himself at all. When he saw me awake, a hint of joy showed on his face. "Sarah, you're finally awake." Seeing him brought all the pain, desperation, and suppression back, almost making my heart burst. I managed to sit up and slapped Mark hard across the face. How does he even have the nerve to show up here? Mark's face swelled immediately, and he looked at me with bitter eyes. I was wrong not to attend Liam's funeral. If you're upset, let it out. Don't hold it in. It's bad for your health. Mia rushed forward, pale, and knelt in front of me. Her tears fell as soon as they welled up. "I'm sorry, Sarah. If you're mad, blame me. Ethan had a sudden heart issue that day, and I panicked. Mark worried about us, so he missed Liam's funeral. It's my fault. You can hit me, just don't divorce Mark because of me." Mia held my hand to her face. She'd pulled stunts like this many times, leaving me at a loss. This time, I slapped her hard and, still unsatisfied, hit her again. "You're such a lowlife. How could someone be this filthy? Why go after a taken man when there are plenty of single ones out there? Do you only feel fulfilled stealing other women's men?" I was about to hit her a third time when Mark, furious, grabbed my hand. "Enough! I told you Mia and I are just friends. She's a single mom with a child trying to manage on her own, and you insist on making it dirty. I yanked my hand away, trying to manage on my own, and you insist on making it dirty." I yanked my hand away, didn't even bother to argue, just pointed at the door in disgust. "Get out, Sarah! How can you treat Mark like this?" Mia tried to keep talking. I grabbed whatever was nearby and threw it at both her and Mark. "Get out, both of you! Get out!" Mark looked at me with a complex expression, but soon left protecting Mia. I used to feel sad seeing this, but now I'm just numb. I come from a wealthy family, and Mark is just a firefighter from a regular background. We weren't supposed to cross paths. It all started when my best friend got dumped, and we went out for drinks. The bar caught fire, and in my darkest moment, Mark found me and risked everything to get me out. He was handsome and saved my life. I was crazy about him. After confirming he was single, I pursued him for a while before he finally agreed to date me and even proposed. Mark is a gentle person. He smiles at everyone, always stays calm, no matter how absurd the situation or people. At first glance, he seems approachable, but the closer you get, the harder it is to truly know him. After we got married, Mark handed over his salary and took on all the house chores. Everyone said I married the perfect husband, but he was always polite, and intimacy felt more like a duty than love. There was always this invisible wall between us. I thought he treated everyone this way until the day Mia returned from overseas after her divorce. That's when I saw Mark lose control for the first time. It was our anniversary, but he took the day off just to be with Mia and didn't even come home that night. I later found out Mia was his ex-girlfriend. They had been together since middle school for almost 10 years. They were really in love. Eventually, they had to separate because their parents didn't approve. Mark claimed he was just trying to help Mia because being a single mom is hard. He swore he never did anything to betray me. I believed him. So I lost completely. I forgot that betrayal isn't just physical. After Mark left, he bombarded me with messages, each a long apology. I didn't even bother reading them. I blocked him and told my brother to fire Mia. I didn't know she was Mark's ex. I just heard she was a single mom in the media industry, so I offered her a job at my company. Now, I'm sure everyone's laughing at me. The day after Mia was fired, Mark showed up with a furrowed brow. He said, "You can be mad at me and fight with me. I can take it. But just because I'm helping Mia a bit more, you shouldn't get her fired out of jealousy. You know she needs to earn a living for her son, right? Do you really want to push her over the edge?" I stared coldly at him. "It's my company. I can fire whoever I want. If you're not happy, go find a new job for your first love. I'm not just firing her. Every penny you spent on her during our marriage, I want it back. Understand, Mia. I've been understanding, and what did it get me? She's practically stolen my husband." Mark's face darkened. "Sarah, I'm telling you again, I've done nothing to betray you. She's just a friend to me now. I was so sick of that line and his self-righteous attitude, I couldn't hold back my emotions. A friend more important than me and Liam. Liam's funeral was 10 days ago. If you cared even a little about us, you'd know Liam died in room 1217, right next to Mia's. Liam called out for his dad, only to watch him violate rescue rules to save another woman and child instead. I'm not asking for you to favor me and Liam. You could have saved who you loved first, fine. But if you had bothered to ask if there were others in the room, or not told other firefighters the floor was clear, Liam wouldn't have died. I screamed at him, desperate to vent all my anger and sadness. Mark's face lost all his dissatisfaction and annoyance, leaving only pale despair. He opened his mouth in disbelief, but couldn't make a sound, his eyes filled with pain and utter chaos. Mark had only ever shown this much emotion for Mia and her son, never before for Liam and me. This was no honor, only a hard slap of reality. Mark looked lost. I'm sorry, I didn't know you and Liam were there. I didn't do it on purpose. Reaching for me, his voice was shaky and filled with panic. I slapped his hand away. I told you our hotel room number in messages more than once, but you were too busy worrying about Mia and her son, right? You even forgot Liam and I were on vacation. Mark turned ghostly pale, trembling as he scrolled their code. Saw it through his phone. I loved sharing every bit of my life with him. It was mostly me talking. The night before Liam died, he wanted to video call his dad, but Mark was on a call with Mia's son, Ethan. He said Ethan didn't have a dad and needed his support, so he ignored Liam, who tried to call 3 times. To cheer Liam up, I suggested we make a video. Liam was happy as he talked to the camera, sharing the places we visited, and excitedly inviting Mark to join us. Mark opened the video with trembling hands, his eyes red and tears streaming down his face as he held back sobs in his throat. I had never seen him look this shattered, and seeing him like this didn't bring me any joy, just a gut-wrenching pain. What good is his regret now? My Liam isn't coming back. Mark clutched his phone tightly, his voice hoarse. I'm sorry for what happened to Liam. It's my fault. If you hate me, I deserve it, but don't take it out on Mia and Ethan. They didn't do anything wrong. You shouldn't. I grabbed the nearest water cup and threw it at his head, my anger almost consuming me. Blood trickled down Mark's forehead. If you want to protect those you care about, Mark, you better make sure you have the ability to do so. Get out. I didn't want to speak another word to him. A man like him doesn't deserve to be Liam's father. The commotion in the room was loud enough that my brother Jack and Larry came in with the medical staff to get Mark out. I had just come out of the ICU, my body was weak, and with all this emotional turmoil, I was feeling dizzy. My brother hadn't been to work for over 2 weeks now, and the workload had piled up. He told me to rest well and left Larry and the caretaker to look after me before rushing to the office. Larry, a friend of my brother's with a laid-back demeanor I never thought would become a lawyer, stunned us all when he did. I hired him for my divorce. Larry sat next to my hospital bed, grabbed an apple, and took a bite. So, what do you want to do? During our marriage, Mark spent all his earnings on Mia and her son, and even borrowed $20,000 from me. I want to recover what he spent on his mistress and divorce him. Also, Mark violated fire safety protocols, delaying Liam's rescue, leading to his death and my severe injury. I want to report him to his superiors. I couldn't move well, so I was asking Larry to help arrange it. I argued with Mark until I was dizzy, but my mind was especially clear. It's not about the money. I just want Mark and Mia to be miserable. Plus, everyone on his team needs to know about the despicable things he's done, so no one else becomes a victim of his selfishness. Larry agreed quickly and started preparing to recover the funds and file the lawsuit. That night, Mark showed up with a bandage on his head, carrying a thermos into the hospital room. I've taken a lot of leave recently, so I can't take more. Sorry for being late. You're injured, and there's a lot you shouldn't eat. So I made something light and nutritious. Try it. Mark unpacked the food and poured some soup, acting like nothing happened. He has 10 days of annual leave a year, 9.5 of which he spends with Mia's family, leaving the half day for emergencies. I glanced at the food. It looked good. But the next second, I overturned everything on the floor, soup included. You bring me a meal and expect me to drop the pursuit of the money you spent on your mistress. Mark looked at the food on the floor, his face turning ashen. Sarah, can't you not speak so harshly? I'm clean with Mia. That money was just a loan to her. I don't get why you're taking it out on her. I'd heard this kind of talk too many times and couldn't help but cough in anger. Mark fell silent and helped pat my back. Before Mia, we were seen as the perfect couple. I wouldn't have had Liam otherwise. I don't know how things got this way between us. Mark sighed and softened his voice. You're weak. Can we not fight? You, having a child, should understand how hard things are for Mia. She lost her job and making her repay now. How is that humane? Think about it. I realized some things could never be clear with him, and I didn't want to waste my breath. Don't want more injuries. Get out. Mark frowned. Mia called him. Ethan couldn't sleep without him. He lost interest in arguing with me. Sarah, you're upset now. Let's talk when you're calmer. Whenever Mia caused trouble, instead of comforting me, Mark blamed me and told me to manage my emotions. He must have thought I'd eventually let things slide like before, but he didn't understand. When Liam died, we were done. I didn't want to stay in the hospital where Mark and Mia could disturb my rest and checked out the same night to go home. The next day, Mark couldn't reach me and asked mutual friends to check on me. You just survived a severe infection. Where'd you go if not the hospital? Mark's worried about you. I scoffed. Ask Mark if he's so worried. Why did he argue over his ex with me right after I left the ICU? And why, after less than 10 minutes in my room, did he rush to Mia's? Don't even? I hung up, then mentioned Mark and Mia in a group chat. Stop dragging me into your play. Enough with the charade. Are you too blind? Own it, Mark. Admit you like your ex. I might not be this disgusted. And Mia, take note, everyone. Watch your husbands or you might end up like me. No one said a word in the group. Everyone was probably buzzing about it privately. Mark texted me from a new number. You hate me, do what you want with me, but stop targeting Mia and her son. They're innocent. Anyone could claim innocence, but not those benefiting from this. I used to keep mum about their dirty laundry because of pride. Now that Liam's gone, I'd rather they, Mark and Mia, were too. I called Mark with a cold tone. Don't worry, Mark, you're involved too. None of you are getting away. Do you really have to be like this? Yes, you're so aggressive now, Sarah. I barely recognize you. What a coincidence, Mark. I feel like I've never truly known you. If I knew he was this oblivious, I wouldn't have married him. Then my kid wouldn't have to be told every day that he's not as sensible as Ethan. He wouldn't feel inferior and sensitive, nor would he be crushed when disappointed. Larry worked quickly, and the court ruled that Mia had to pay me back $1.85 million. But, like Larry said from the start, I didn't have concrete evidence of Mark's cheating. The court didn't find the marriage irreparably broken, so no divorce was granted. Mark wasn't happy about me pressuring Mia to repay the money. He wanted to borrow money to pay her back himself, but I refused. I had Larry tell him, Mark, if you want to support your mistress and her kid, I'm not stopping you. We'll get a divorce, and post-divorce, you can do whatever you want. But right now, any loan you take is our joint debt, and I'm not agreeing to it. I thought Mark would agree easily. He cares so much about Mia and her kid. How could he bear to watch them suffer? But I was wrong. Mark wanted to meet and talk to me, but I declined. Larry came back and told me, Mark refuses to divorce. He thinks your relationship is just fine. He believes you're just misunderstanding him and are upset at the moment. I realized I really don't know Mark. He's all about Mia and her kid now. He's become more impatient with me over the years, treating me worse than a stranger. I don't understand why he's still holding on. If Mark won't make things easy for me, I'm not going to be patient like before. He wants to drag this out. I'll make him beg for divorce later. The complaint letter has already reached the fire department and it's been processed over the days. The discipline inspection department called, saying they wanted to talk to me. I agreed. A whole group of them came over. Knowing I was recovering, they even brought some supplements. However, I didn't expect them to bring Mark along too. The leader spoke earnestly. Mark has already explained the situation to us. It's indeed his fault. Mark, come over here and seriously apologize to Sarah. Mark looked thinner and had dark circles under his eyes. He walked up to me, his voice hoarse. I'm sorry, Sarah. I promise this won't happen again. I clenched my hands tightly. You promise? What good is your promise? Liam is already gone. Can your apology bring him back? Mark, you didn't even show up for your son's funeral. You're truly heartless. Mark swallowed. The usually calm and composed man seemed utterly panicked. I'm sorry about Liam, but Ethan had a heart attack. He doesn't have a dad, and Mia doesn't know much. I just couldn't leave. Is Mia only surrounded by dead people? She's 35, not a 5-year-old. If you didn't want to attend the funeral, just say it. Aren't you tired of making excuses? I looked around, my voice trembling. Are you all here to speak for Mark? Can you even listen to his excuses? In the past, I stubbornly got paternity tests for Mark and Ethan several times, but they weren't father and son. Later, I realized there's a saying, love the house and its crow. Mark just loves Mia that much. Everyone looked uncomfortable. The leader awkwardly spoke. Sarah, calm down. I need to be honest with you. Mark is very capable. His superiors want to promote him, and he has unlimited potential for the future. You both are married. If you really report him, you'll ruin his future. I ignored the leader and just asked Mark, do you have the face to continue being a firefighter, Mark? If it had been anyone else doing the rescue that day, Liam wouldn't have died while holding your lover and Ethan. Did you know Liam was crying behind a door, calling out Dad? It hurt so much. If someone else had gone, no one would have died. Not Liam, not Mia, and her kid. Mark's face went pale. He couldn't say a word and ran out, distraught. Through the window, I saw the sky was dark, as if it were going to pour rain. The fire department called me the next day to inform me of Mark's punishment, a major demerit, demotion, and dismissal from his role as captain. I was feeling better and went to visit Liam's grave. He'd only been gone a month, but it felt like ages. Sometimes I dream of him crying at night, waking up, and I can't go back to sleep. Feeling every minute is unbearable. I didn't expect Mark to be there, too. There were flowers, toys, a small cake, and snacks in front of Liam's tombstone. I walked over, expressionless, and kicked them all away. Mark frowned. Sarah, whatever issues are between us, you can take it out on me. But don't act this way in front of Liam. He's my child too, but you brought what Ethan likes. I placed Lego, a Rubik's Cube, and Liam's favorite spicy snacks on the grave. Mark helplessly crouched down to help. I'm sorry, I just thought all kids like those things. If you don't care, stop pretending. Aren't you disgusted with yourself? He remembered Ethan's preferences but couldn't remember a single thing Liam liked. In the end, it was because he was just indifferent. Mark said bitterly, I just wanted to spend more time with Liam. I was too busy and spent too little time with him. But before Liam died, he told me he wants a different dad in the afterlife. Mark stumbled, his eyes slowly turning red. He knelt and kept apologizing to Liam, admitting he was wrong, but I just found it hypocritical. If you're really sorry, you should respect his wish and stay away from him. Mark wanted to say something, but then Mia called him, and he got up right away. I looked up at him. The guilt, pain, and regret in his eyes disappeared, leaving only resentment. Sarah, I've already said Mia and her boy are innocent. If you must blame someone for Liam's death, blame me. It has nothing to do with Mia and Ethan. You're a mom too. Why are you so harsh on another mom and her child? You won't even let them have a place to live. Mia had Mark's backing, and she wouldn't pay me back even though she had money. I had Larry file for an enforcement order, and they managed to get Mia and her son kicked out of their property. They were forced out of the house just this morning. Don't worry, I'm coming. Mark reassured Mia anxiously before leaving. See, he doesn't actually think he's wrong. It's all just talk. As soon as Mia and her son show up, he's all over me with blame. But Mark didn't just switch up all of a sudden. This was a long time coming. I remember when we first got together. I asked him, why would you risk your life to save someone you don't even know? He said it was his duty. But firefighters are people too. Aren't you afraid? He chuckled, saying it might have something to do with how he grew up. Later on, I found out Mark's dad was a firefighter too. He died in the line of duty when Mark was just 7. His mom wasn't in good health, had no job, and life was really tough for them. She passed away when he was 15. He managed to grow up safely and joined the fire department thanks to the help from his dad's colleagues and other friends and family. Mia's parents didn't want them together because of his tough background and the whole orphan thing. Mark never once complained about that. He said no one wants a hard life, so he got it. His mom used to tell him, "We're doing this well because of the help we got from others." When you're older, help others as much as you can. Mark stayed optimistic and always helped people in need. He'd use most of what he earned to support them. I've got money, so I never relied on him financially. I always thought he was kind-hearted. That's what I loved most about him. But later, it became what I hated most. Whenever Mia and her son needed help, he would never turn them down. I went from calm to distressed to furious. Mark never got why I was angry. He just looked disappointed. He'd say stuff like, "I've helped other people before and you never said anything. So why get all worked up over Mia and her son? I've never crossed any lines with her. Can you please stop being unreasonable and jealous over nothing?" I snapped out of my thoughts after an hour with Liam, but then I saw Mark again while paying my respects and later ran into him and Mia with her kid. Only they were upstairs and I was downstairs. A crowd of onlookers surrounded me. Mia was holding her kid on the edge of the rooftop while Mark and the police tried to calm her down. They already had an air cushion ready and a fire truck standing by. Mia saw me and screamed desperately, "Sarah, do I really have to die for you to leave us alone?" My phone rang. Knowing I'd blocked him, Mark borrowed someone else's phone to call me. He pleaded, "Please don't rile her up. They've been through enough. If you're mad, take it out on me." I nearly shouted, "Feel sorry for them. Did you know during the fire, they knew Liam and I were next door, but didn't warn you?" Mark froze, almost panicking. No way. Mia is a good person. She wouldn't do that. People blinded by their beliefs never see the truth. I hung up and yelled to Mia, "Aren't you gonna jump? Go ahead. If you can't let your kid jump, maybe you can jump." Cops and firefighters rushed at me, trying to stop me, and the crowd stared, criticizing. I was about to scream when someone handed me a megaphone. It was Larry. He shrugged. "Screaming's bad for your voice. Don't want your brother worrying." He reminded me he'd been adamant about keeping me safe. I took the megaphone. "What's everyone worried about? Mia never planned to jump. Does she look like she's gonna actually do it?" Everyone looked at Mia on the rooftop, silent. Larry nudged me to stand on something so everyone could see. I hesitated but climbed up. "Don't mind the gossip, but the woman shouting is my husband's mistress, and that handsome man back there is my husband. He transferred $185,000 to her while we were married. I sued her, but she won't pay back. If their house gets auctioned, she pulls the stunt hoping public pressure gets me to cave. She's shameless. Isn't this a waste of fire department resources?" Crowd members murmured in sympathy, saying things like, "The wife's the real victim here. What a deceitful pair." Larry helped me down, worried I'd fall, then drove me home. Mia dragged this drama into the spotlight, hitting the news headlines. Soon enough, the media uncovered what went down during the fire. On the 15th, at the Rose Hotel fire, Mark led the team, but for personal reasons. He disrupted the rescue process to save his ex, Mia, and her son first. He didn't follow the proper rescue procedures, delaying help, which led to a 5-year-old boy's death, and seriously injured a woman. In a tragic twist, Mark's child was the boy who died and the woman was his wife. Their room was next to his ex's. Mark and Mia got slammed on social media. She tried renting a place, but landlords recognized her and refused. As for Mark, people are livid about him. If he wouldn't even save his own son, how can anyone trust him with the duty to save others? Mark attempted to reach out to me multiple times but failed. Eventually, he got a lawyer to start the divorce process. Larry's handling my divorce, coordinating with the other lawyer. He told me Mark left a message through his attorney. On the day of the fire, Mia was just too panicked and forgot you and Liam were next door. He's disappointed you'd push things without getting facts straight, so he's decided to divorce you. Is he just too gullible, easily fooled by Mia? Or is he unwilling to face the truth that he helped someone with bad intentions, leading to his son's death? I don't really get it, and honestly, I don't have the energy to dig any deeper. When I loved him, I racked my brain to find excuses for him, desperately looking for any tiny proof that he loved me and Liam. But now, none of that matters. Larry, let's go talk to Mark about the divorce. We should file the papers today and have the discussion at my place. Right after Liam passed, I couldn't even go home. I was afraid that being in a familiar space would make me lose it. Plus, I couldn't stand being under the same roof as Mark anymore. Now that I'm set on leaving him, I know I want to keep the house filled with memories of Liam. I'll make Mark pack his things and leave. Larry gave the other lawyer a heads up, then drove me over. When we got to the house, the lawyer called and said it was better to meet at a cafe. I just want to get this divorce over with. So I agreed quickly. But since we were already at the house, I decided to grab Liam's favorite Lego set. I planned to take it to his grave once the divorce stuff was settled. When I tried to enter, the code wouldn't work. I tried twice and got it wrong each time. Then, suddenly, I heard a familiar woman's voice from inside. "Who's there?" The door opened, and there was Mia, in her pajamas, with Ethan behind her. He was also in casual homeware. The living room looked different now, clearly set up for them to stay. This was my and Mark's marital home. We weren't even divorced yet, and he had let another woman stay here with her kid. What did he think this place was? Blood rushed to my head. Everything got blurry. Mia tried to close the door quickly. Larry clicked his tongue impatiently and kicked the door open. "You can't come in." Mia hesitated, trying to block me. "Get out of my way!" I shoved past her, storming inside. Seeing the bedroom all new, with no trace of Liam left, broke me. Liam's clothes, shoes, toys, photos, where were they? Grabbing Mia by the collar, I was on the brink of an emotional breakdown. Her eyes darted everywhere. Ethan piped up, "Mom said keeping a dead person's stuff around is bad luck." So she threw it all out. That snapped the last string of sanity in my mind. I screamed, grabbed Mia by the hair, and slapped her hard across the face. She fell to the floor, and I jumped on her, wanting to make her pay. Why? Why did she have to erase even the last traces of my child who was already gone? Mark always claimed she and her son were innocent. But what about Liam and me? Did we deserve this? "Stop it, Sarah. Mia being soft-hearted isn't an excuse for you to bully her." I slapped her hard. "Mark, I've never met anyone more contemptible than you." When the cops arrived, I let Larry handle it with a professional lawyer. Mia wasn't even seriously injured, so I only needed to pay a few $1,000s in compensation. I told Larry to hit the nearest ATM, then threw the cash at Mia's swollen face. "I've compensated you. Now let's talk about your illegal entry into my home," Mia sobbed. Mark stood protectively in front of her, frowning. I allowed her in. "You seem to forget I'm the homeowner." Despite his family's financial struggles, Mark never cared much since marrying me. Our place and car were my purchases. Realizing he was wrong, he went quiet. "You don't have to be so harsh. Did you forget you're the one who called the cops, Mark? You guys took Liam from me and threw away his things, erasing every trace. But I'm the unreasonable one. You guys are twisting the narrative." Mark looked at Mia, shocked. "Did you toss Liam's stuff? I told you not to mess with anything here." Mia sobbed even louder. I listened, irritated. Tossing Liam's things meant losing at least $500K worth. Illegal entry, property damage, there were serious charges. I had no time to waste on them, and left. Mark followed, panicked. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I avoided suspicion and left after she moved in. I didn't know." I slapped him again. "Mark, you'd better pray I find Liam's stuff. Otherwise, I'll make sure you regret ever crossing me." My brother had already reached out to people at the dump and hired extra hands to look for Liam's belongings. Larry and I rushed over, Mark tagging along. "You're not well, Sarah. Get some rest and I'll find it." I ignored him, took the gloves Larry handed me, and started combing through the piles of trash, looking for Liam's things. Mark just stood there, unsure. What exactly am I looking for? In Liam's early years, Mia wasn't around, so Mark had taken good care of our kid. Diapers, baby food, it was all him, and Liam adored him. People used to say I was lucky, but since Mia appeared, Mark was either at work or at her place. He could rant for minutes about Ethan, but didn't know a thing about Liam's life or preferences. I kept searching silently. Mark awkwardly went around asking people questions, and they showed him some photos. In the 90-degree summer heat, you can imagine how bad the trash mountain smelled. Mark was looking everywhere, working tirelessly. He didn't even take a break at noon or eat or drink, and he passed out from heat stroke on the trash pile. An ambulance took him away, but once he regained consciousness, he rushed back, gritting his teeth and digging through the trash. From the lawyer's side, there was a question. Miss Sarah, this Miss Mia wants to talk to you. She says that as long as she doesn't go to jail, she's willing to make any financial compensation for the losses she caused you. You tell her that she and her son should go kneel at my son's grave. When they find all of Liam's things, every single one, then they can get up. If she agrees to that, I won't prosecute her. I hung up the phone. Mark frowned and said, Mia went too far this time, but she's in poor health, and Ethan has a congenital heart disease. So I cut him off. You can go kneel with them too. Otherwise, I'll make sure she goes to jail. As for my son's things, he doesn't need you to search for them. You missed 2 years of Liam's life, and now Liam doesn't need you at all. I shoved Mark aside and kept searching through the trash. Larry would tell me every day about Mark and those two. I meant what I said. They kneel day and night. It's their choice. Who cares if their bodies can handle it? The little bit of hardship they suffer doesn't compare to a tenth of Liam's pain. It took a full 2 days to find everything. I didn't care how dirty it was. I hugged it all to me with joy and tears streaming down my face. Larry patted my shoulder. Come on, let's go home. Liam would be worried if he saw you like this. At home, everything felt strange, and it made me sick. I had everything thrown out to the trash pile. Mark and Mia, along with her son, knelt for 2 whole days and nights. Even if it wasn't very proper kneeling, their bodies couldn't take it, and they all walked unsteadily. You threw my stuff away. Mark, Mia's voice quivered with tears. Annoyed by her crying, I grabbed a picture frame and threw it at her. Even if a few $1,000s means hitting you once, I can afford that price. Even if Mia didn't accept the settlement, the worst would be a few days locked up, and I could handle that outcome. Mia gasped like a duck with its throat caught, but she didn't dare cry anymore. She just looked at Mark with teary eyes. Mark looked at me with a complicated expression. We've done what you asked. Can you withdraw the charges now? Of course. As Mia smiled, I continued. But Mark, I've changed my mind. I'm not getting divorced. I'll wait it out and teach you all what true harassment and deliberate targeting looks like. Mark shouldn't think he can take divorce money from me to support Mia and her son. None of them will have a good time. After throwing out Mia's stuff, I tossed out all of Mark's things too and changed the house's lock code. Mark, you borrowed a total of $200,000 from me during the marriage, and you promised to repay me with your salary. If you can afford to say you'll pay off Mia's $185,000, don't drag out repaying me on purpose. Mark, being competitive, became as accomplished as he was. Similarly, he couldn't stand being provoked. Even though Mia tried to stop him from paying the money back, he still transferred it to me. That was all the ready cash he had at his disposal. Mark looked a bit awkward. If you hate me, just take it out on me. I deserve it. But the most Mia and her kid ever did was accept my help. They've done nothing wrong. I led Larry into the house and shut the door with a bang. There's nothing to say to someone not thinking clearly about those interviews about the fire. Should they still come? Larry asked me. Yeah, why not? When someone first revealed the truth about the fire, I didn't do any interviews to save Mark's face. Many online guests maybe thought he had his reasons. How could someone ignore their own son? But if he doesn't care, why should I? Before the interview happened, though, Mark called urgently. Where's Liam's grave? Anyway, you didn't treat him like a son when he was alive, so don't go dirtying his path in the afterlife now that he's gone. I'm not letting you see him anymore. I've moved Liam's ashes and tombstone. Liam doesn't want this dad anymore, so I had to fulfill his last wish. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, Mark said, sounding bitter. I smiled, but not really. No need to regret so soon. This is just the start. That afternoon, the reporters came, and I spoke truthfully to the camera. I told my husband where our child and I lived, but he blocked me and didn't answer our calls because he was busy working, busy with Mia and her son, fearing we'd disturb them. When he rescued those two, he passed by our room. My son Liam kept calling for his dad, but he worried about a blister or two on the kids' burns, rushing to get them out. And without checking other rooms, he told the rescue team there were no more people trapped. Delaying the golden rescue time cost my son, Liam, his life. Remembering how Liam lay in my arms broke my voice several times as I spoke. The video uploaded and caused a huge stir again. The fire department, considering the negative impact Mark caused, suspended him. I made a group chat with all mutual acquaintances. This is Sarah, Mark's wife. Sorry for any disturbance. Given all the recent mess in our home, I need to clear the air. If Mark borrows money from you all, it's to support Mia and her son. I won't shoulder those debts personally. He doesn't have savings or other assets, just his monthly salary to pay off debts. Please consider carefully before lending money. The thought of using my money to support Mark for Mia and her son. Only a fool would pay that back for him. I'm not just worrying for nothing. He's done it before, borrowing money to buy a house for Mia and her kid. Thinking about how Mark might not be able to repay, most wouldn't lend to him, but some might, since he's helped plenty in the past. When Mark helped Mia and her son find a place to rent, I had someone find out the address. Once they moved in, I hired some troublemakers to throw a stink bomb, graffiti with blood-like paint, hang banners, and toss rotten veggies. Mark and Mia called the cops to catch those guys. It's cool, though. It's just disturbing the peace. They'd only be locked up for a few days and then be back at it. If not them, then I'd just find a new crew. As long as I've got cash, plenty are willing to help me out. If Mark and Mia can't handle it and move again, I'd have people find the new place and repeat the process. Larry would gather evidence on how much Mark was spending on Mia and her kid, filing for recovery of our shared assets every week. If Mia can't pay back, it's no problem. She has a car, could be sold at auction. No car, no biggie, would freeze her bank account instead. If Mark and Mia aren't embarrassed by this, why should I be bothered? Back then, when I just mentioned something, Mark would accuse me of singling out Mia and picking on them. I wasn't about to take that blame for nothing. Larry usually deals with cases worth billions, so doing this small stuff for me isn't really using his skills. I suggested he get another attorney on it. Larry said, "Your brother and sister-in-law feel bad enough for not looking out for their nephew. They can't let anyone bully you. If I wash my hands of this, they'd flay me alive." I needed a break anyways, so I'm here for a change of pace. All this lasted about a month before Mia couldn't take it anymore, mainly because her son has a heart condition. After a few scares, it was nearly fatal, and she couldn't even cover the medical bills. Mark confronted me. "Aren't you afraid of causing a death with all this?" I laughed. "Why should I be?" Mark didn't expect my answer. "Death isn't a joke. You'd end up in jail. Jail would be the same for me, with or without Liam. I'm just having people harass Mia. If her son gets scared to death, it's hardly my fault. Worst case, I'm looking at a couple of years or paying damages, maybe not even jail time, to make Mark and Mia miserable for life. Worth it." Mark looked at me darkly. "Sarah, how did you become like this?" I shot back. "Didn't you force me to be? He took my child away. I can't move on and feel awful. Why do they get to live happily?" Mark opened his mouth but didn't speak, only looked pained as he walked away. Mia came crying to seek peace behind his back. I arranged to meet her at a cafe. Mia looked much older, jealousy in her eyes. "I really am jealous of you, Sarah. You're pretty, capable, have a good family, and married well. Unlike me, my parents pressured me into marrying an older, abusive man just to get a hefty bride price. They ruined my life." I sipped my coffee. "I'm not here to hear your sob story. Her parents wronged her, not me. I'm not Mark. Just because she pleads, I won't forgive her." Mia smiled wryly. "I've held this in for long. Since middle school, I've liked Mark. When I first divorced and returned, I worried he'd resent me for marrying another. But he treated me kindly. I wondered if, like me, he still had feelings. Each time I stirred things up, watching him get upset with you over what I said, it made me happy. But so many years have passed. Truth is, Mark helped Ethan and me out of sympathy. He never crossed any lines. I did try to seduce him, but he never took the bait. Now, Mark and I are paying the price. I'm leaving, so quit giving him a hard time. He's grieving your child too. It's been tough on him. She rambled on about her feelings. I didn't respond right away, just fidgeted with my phone. A message popped up on Mia's phone. Her face changed when she saw it because I sent the video to all my contacts, including her and Mark. You didn't think some soft words would make me stop, did you? No matter how regrettable her situation, it gives her no right to make Liam and me suffer. Mia's face drained of color. She dropped into a chair. I left without a glance back. She made my child miserable for 2 years, so it's only fair I respond in kind for just as long. Whether her son's heart problems get worse, or he develops trauma, or she has nightmares, isn't my problem. I just wondered how Mark would react to that video. I went home, but I didn't expect Mark to be waiting at my door. I, Both he and Mia, after dealing with harassers and their troubles, looked worn out, and he must have seen the video I sent. He looked like he'd been through something major, reeking of alcohol, his eyes all red, kind of like a homeless guy. When he saw me, Mark came over, eager and sincere. Sarah, you gotta believe me, I didn't know Mia thought that. I just thought your brother treats you well. You've got lots of friends and you're capable. Her parents are just gold diggers, trying to bleed her dry. They've been awful to her. She's divorced. Raising a kid is hard. I thought she needed me more and just wanted to help her. No hidden motives. I haven't wronged you at all. I'll cut ties with her. Do whatever you say. Just give me another chance. Well, why? Mark was talking fast, like he was scared I'd throw him out before he finished. Since we started dating, he took the lead, and I was the one revolving around him. It's his first time being this humble. I didn't hesitate much and nodded. Okay. What? What did you say? Mark stared at me blankly. She said, okay. If you can't hear right, go see an ENT. You're young. Maybe it can be treated. Larry swung the car door open, getting out, and teasingly said, listening to you guys talk so much made me thirsty. Don't you guys want to grab a drink? Sure. I smiled at him and walked inside with him. Mark, trying to hide his joy, quickly followed and poured water for Larry and me. It was only 2 in the afternoon. I took a sip from my glass. Larry, these days you've been busy helping me. Why not stay for dinner tonight? Mark's a good cook. You should try his food. Larry chuckled. You gotta ask him, Mr. Mark. Do you mind? Mark replied, I don't mind. We're out of groceries, so you'll have to make a run. Larry and I are tired. We won't accompany you. Without lifting my head, I said to Larry, I noticed you always wear the same tie. Picked up a few for you. We'll drop them off in a couple of days. Matching cufflinks, too. Larry joked, usually girlfriends buy those. You buying them for me? Is that okay? You're my brother's good friend, kinda like siblings. Nothing wrong with getting you a few things. By the way, you mentioned the headache. I'm free now. Let me give you a massage. I stood up, walked behind Larry, and started rubbing his head. Lean on me. It's easier this way. Larry raised an eyebrow. Your husband's right here, isn't he? What's the big deal? We're innocent. Only dirty minds would think otherwise. He didn't argue, resting his head against me, right below my chest, in a spot that might raise eyebrows. Mark stood nearby, his face showing a whirlwind of emotions, wanting to speak, but holding back, much like I used to be. Looking at him, my smile faded. If you don't want to cook, just say so. Larry and I can eat out. We don't mind spending on a meal. Mark's eyes dimmed. It's fine. I'll go. He took 4.5 hours shopping and cooking. When he finished, I went to check it out. Too bland. Larry doesn't like this. Eat at home. We'll find a restaurant. Ignoring Mark's darkened expression, I called Larry, wrapped my arm around his, chatting and laughing as we left. When we got back that night, Mark had tidied up the place, just like when we first got married. It was late, and since we had extra rooms, I suggested Larry stay over. Larry patted my head. Our Sarah's grown up, being so considerate. I playfully nestled into his arms, holding his neck, of course. Larry treats me well, so naturally I care for you too. Mark, silent so far, couldn't hold it in. Sarah, are you getting back at me? He sounded frantic and hurt. Maybe the past me would have felt for him, but now I felt nothing. Getting back at you? You're overthinking. I'm just having him stay since driving at nights is unsafe. Why do you make such a big deal? Grumbling. I stopped paying him heed and cozied up with Larry, asking him to watch a show with me. Mark never watched dramas, just the news. When I shared with him, he'd just grunt. Larry was different. Handling divorce cases, he shared juicy stories from his work, much more engaging. We chatted eagerly, making it hard for Mark to join in. When he tried, we mostly ignored him. At bedtime, Mark headed to the master bedroom early. I picked a sexy nightgown and stepped out. Where are you going? Mark frowned. Larry's a light sleeper, just giving him a massage. Wearing that, you're a woman. He's an adult man. Isn't that inappropriate? Mark, we're just like siblings. Don't be jealous without reason. Today's events all echoed past ones. Mark and Mia had similar talks before. I was just returning the favor. No biggie. I thought Mark, with his stubbornness, would hold out a month or two. But in just 2 days, he cracked. When Mark came with divorce papers, he looked worn out with panda eyes. Sorry for the hurt I've caused you and Liam. I always thought. I just took one look and quickly signed the divorce papers, then went to file the application. After the cooling off period, we got our divorce certificate. Mark, who used to never touch a drop of alcohol, now drinks all day. He looks so defeated and messy, a shadow of his former self. From the time we met until now, he saved my life once, and then took my son's life. Now I've had my revenge, but seeing him so downtrodden doesn't bring me any joy, just a feeling of suffocation. We used to be a happy family of 3 once upon a time. I didn't say anything, just turned around and got into the car. Mia, with Ethan, is harassed daily by people I arranged, living a miserable life. Yet Liam's death still weighs heavily on my heart, keeping me awake at night and making it hard to focus on work. Maybe someday, I'll let go of Liam and start a new journey. Meeting Sarah after saving her was an accident. She's beautiful, capable, and gentle, making it easy for anyone to fall for her. I didn't plan to get close to this rich lady at first, but Sarah showed up. We got married. That time felt like a dream whenever I think about it. But that only lasted the first couple of years. Gradually, something changed. Sometimes when I went out to help people, acquaintances would tease me. Mark must be spending all his money on others, huh? What's he using to support his wife and kid? Anyone else would worry about that. But Sarah's family has money, and she earns well too. She lets Mark do good deeds. Colleagues chatting about life's pressures bring up my name. I envy Mark, marrying a good wife. No worries about mortgages or loans. I wish I could be carefree like Mark. Or if only I looked as good as Mark, I wouldn't have to worry. Mark does all the housework and cooks great meals for his wife. Can you do that? Teasing like that is constant. I know I shouldn't take it to heart, but it feels weird facing Sarah each time. When I'm worried about helping someone but don't have enough money, Sarah would laugh and say, "Why are you worrying? Tell me if you need money." I've got it. She was just trying to help. I used to feel happy about it, but later, it left an indescribable feeling. Especially when visiting Sarah's family, my brother-in-law often had talks with me. I understand you want to help, but not everyone can be helped, not even Sarah's family. Mark, helping others within your means is good, but beyond that, it's a burden. You're married now, consider your family. Don't rely just on Sarah. Others have told me similar things, but hearing it from him felt humiliating. I tried not to help others, but tossing and turning in bed felt wrong. I tried making more money, but I'm just a firefighter, lacking other skills. Even after coming home from, but I'm just a firefighter, lacking other skills. Even after coming home from work, I did all the housework, cooked Sarah's favorite dishes. Yet things felt different. When Liam was 3, life was extremely tough. Until Mia came back, battered, holding Ethan, asking for my help. Sarah is beautiful, strong, and independent, handling everything herself. I felt like an unnecessary addition, but Mia was different, weak, teary, and clueless. She needed someone for everything, taking care of her, and Ethan occupied all my time, easing my anxiety. But then Sarah suddenly started fighting with me. I didn't understand. I helped Mia like I helped others. Why was Sarah so particular? I told her many times. I had no unfaithful thoughts towards Mia, nor did I do anything to betray her. I knew Mia tried to flirt with me, but I saw it as a lack of security on her part. As long as I didn't cross the line and stayed faithful, it was okay. I lived like that for 2 years until Liam's death made Sarah erupt. Perhaps she tolerated me too much before, and that moment made me realize she could also be angry and disappointed and could choose to leave. Knowing Liam died because of my mistake haunted my nights with nightmares. Yet I believed there was still hope with Sarah since I hadn't cheated. But seeing her with Larry at our home for those 2 days shattered that illusion. Hurting someone doesn't always need infidelity. Such a life was unbearable for even one day. So, how did she endure it for 2 whole years? I started loathing myself, began to regret. But no matter what, Liam was gone, and Sarah and I were impossible. Seeing fire reminds me of Liam, his cries for help. I developed a phobia and resigned. I wanted to do something for Liam, like volunteering to teach as good karma for him. During 10 years in the mountains, I lost a leg trying to save a trafficked woman. I have no regrets, but I regret saving so many yet failing my own son in marriage. Heard Mia and Ethan were harassed by thugs for 2 years until Sarah stopped it. But Mia started seeing another man, whose wife, Fierce, caused Ethan a fatal heart attack. Mia blinded the woman in one eye and ended up jailed. In the 11th year, Sarah was getting remarried. So, her fiancé was not Larry, but someone I'd never met. I took a half-month leave, traveled overnight, wanting to attend her wedding. She's finally starting anew, and I must bless her. After 58 hours on the road, I was fortunate to see Sarah as I arrived in the city. She was laughing with a handsome man who playfully tapped her nose, eyes filled with warmth and love. Sarah, I hurriedly called her name, but I was too far. She didn't hear. Getting into the car with the man, I tried to run, never hating my limp more. Suddenly, a car came out of nowhere hitting me, and the ring box I was holding rolled away. I spent 10 years saving up on a diamond ring. I was supposed to give it to her when we married. I lifted my hand to retrieve the ring, but everywhere hurt, my hand, my leg, I couldn't move. Sarah. I called her name, but the car started and vanished. Is this the same despair she felt, pleading for help with Liam in the fire? Blood choked me as I coughed, vision fading to black. I'm going to see Liam now, hoping he's willing to see me. And Sarah have a happy marriage.